Johnny Carson. You won't believe what old-school Hollywood kept off camera. For decades, a certain late-night legend sat across from the biggest stars on Earth, smiling, joking, keeping the show moving, while, according to long-whispered industry lore, everyone tiptoed around private truths that could have ended careers in a heartbeat. Tonight, we're unpacking those stories. Quick note before we start. We're looking at historical rumors, public record, and long-circulating accounts from Hollywood's studio era. People had to protect themselves in a far harsher time. No judgment here, just context and compassion. Now, imagine the hottest names in film walking through the curtain, the band hitting that bright theme, and the host asking safe questions while both sides carefully steer away from landmines. That was the delicate dance fame on one side, survival on the other. Rock Hudson, the picture-perfect leading man. He was tall, impossibly handsome, and marketed as the ultimate romantic fantasy. But behind the publicity, he lived with constant pressure to maintain a public image the studios built for him. Stories from the era describe interviews like tightrope walks, charming anecdotes on air, quiet panic off it. A brief marriage to Phyllis Gates eased gossip. The work never stopped coming. The spotlight stayed blinding. When he passed in 1985, the public finally faced the truth head-on, and it forced a national conversation about privacy, image, and dignity that was long overdue. Cary Grant, cool, witty, impossible not to watch. He practically invented the modern idea of suave. Yet, the gap between persona and private life fascinated everyone who knew the backstory. For years, he shared a home with fellow star Randolph Scott, a domestic setup that fan magazines once photographed as bachelor charm. Two men cooking, lounging by the pool, living quietly by the ocean. Meanwhile, the publicity machine kept the spotlight on Grant's 5 marriages, and the Cary Grant we saw on screen became a kind of armor, a role so perfect it hid the man beneath it. Katharine Hepburn, fearless, sharp, and unapologetically herself. Her long relationship with Spencer Tracy became Hollywood's favorite love story, retold for decades as proof that destiny looks good in black and white. But Hepburn did something quietly radical. She stepped away from the circus. She built a private life back east, wore trousers when it was still a statement, and chose independence over gossip column obligation. Whether that famous partnership was grand romance, practical arrangement, or something in between, it gave her cover to live on her own terms in an era that gave women very few choices. Marlon Brando, raw nerve on screen, tightly managed off it. He changed acting forever, then spent years dodging questions that would never have been asked if the culture were kinder. Later in life, he was more candid about his fluidity, but at his peak, the myth of the untamable ladies' man was safer and safer sold tickets. The irony? The actor celebrated for ruthless truth had to keep parts of his truth carefully out of frame. James Dean, the rebel the world crowned, before he turned 25. His legend is frozen in time. 3 films, a fatal crash, and a symbol that never aged. Hollywood lore suggests he navigated power the way ambitious newcomers often had to, strategically. Whether those stories are fair or not, one thing is clear. Dying young sealed him in amber. No talk show couch, no awkward tell-all, no chance to push back or set the record straight. The mystery became the brand, Marlene Dietrich, pure voltage. She turned androgyny into art and walked through Hollywood like a woman who knew exactly who she was. Suits, smoky voice, wicked humor. She turned ambiguity into allure and got away with it, in part because she was European and impossible to box in. Married on paper, independent in practice, she showed that presentation, when owned boldly enough, can become a shield. Raymond Burr, the voice, the gravitas, the courtroom charisma of Perry Mason. He also carried one of the most elaborate public backstories the industry ever built. Claimed marriages, tragic losses, invented chapters that conveniently explained why certain questions should never be asked. Off-camera, he built a life with his partner, Robert Benavides, raising orchids and making wine simple joys, quietly shared. The contradiction was brutal. America's TV truth-teller living inside a story he never wrote but had to perform every day. Charles Laughton and Elsa Lanchester, a partnership that lasted decades and, according to insiders of the time, worked because it gave both artists professional safety and personal freedom. It wasn't a tabloid-perfect fairy tale. It was a pact that allowed two brilliant performers to flourish. They found a way to make the studio system's rules work for them, not against them, and in that compromise was a kind of courage. Tyrone Power, the face on the poster, the sword in the swashbuckler, the crush of a generation. He was so beautiful, it became a cage. Public romance was the price of admission. Private reality had to live in the shadows. He died young, too, and with him went the possibility of seeing how the changing culture might have let him breathe easier. So, what ties all these stories together? Not scandal, pressure. The studio era didn't just sell movies, it sold lives, and it punished anyone who refused the costume change. Publicists wrote the script, magazines ran the stills, and hosts kept interviews clean because stepping on the wrong line could turn a career to dust. That's the part we forget. When the lights went down and the applause stopped, real people carried the cost of a fiction designed to keep the dream intact. Now, imagine being the one across the desk every night, knowing the truth and choosing kindness over the big gotcha. It's easy to be cynical about showbiz, but there's a quiet dignity in refusing to out people in a world that would have crushed them. Maybe that's the lesson that still matters. Privacy is not a lie. Sometimes it's survival. Look how far we've come and how far there still is to go. Today, more stars speak in their own voices. The industry, for all its flaws, is better than it was. Audiences are kinder than the marketers once believed. And those old photos, the poolside breakfasts, the tailored suits, the staged dates, read differently now. We see the craft, the compromise, and the courage it took just to get through another interview without tripping the alarm. Before we wrap, a quick roll call of respect for the icons we've mentioned. People who navigated a maze with no good map. Rock Hudson, Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy, Marlon Brando, James Dean, Marlene Dietrich, Raymond Burr, Charles Laughton, Elsa Lanchester, and Tyrone Power. Whether their stories were open secrets, whispered rumors, or complicated realities, they all faced a system that demanded perfection and punished honesty. The miracle is that so much art slipped through anyway. Closing thought. Fame shouldn't require erasing yourself. If you felt that too, tap like so, more folks see it. Drop a comment. Which old Hollywood myth looks different to you now, and which star do you want a deeper, kinder look at next? And if you're into the real stories behind the glossy posters, hit subscribe. Next time, we're pulling back the curtain on the studio fixers, the shadowy problem solvers who kept the machine humming and taught Hollywood how to outrun the truth.